It is Election Day, and U.S. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell voting in his home state of Kentucky, not only hoping to hold on to his U.S. Senate seat, but also to win the top spot in the Senate if Republicans take control, but not if Democratic challenger Allison Lundergan Grimes is pulling off an upset in the bluegrass state. And despite the polls, she says she is feeling very good that just might happen.
The ground game that we have is dynamic, and I know that the grassroots organization across the state, it's unlike anything Kentucky's ever seen. The people of this state are ready to have their voice heard, and I'm excited about the energy and enthusiasm I know they're going to bring today. It's already higher turnout than expected, and we hope it stays that way throughout the day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York, and that Senate race in Kentucky, just one of several being closely watched in these midterm elections as Senate control is hanging in the balance. ABC's Taman Bradley joining us now live from Capitol Hill. Taman?
Heck of a race out there in Kentucky, Dan. You know, it's hard to believe that the campaign is over and the election is now in the hands of voters. President Obama is not on the ballot, but he's playing a big role. Election Day in America. Voters lining up at the polls. House seats, governor seats, and control of the Senate up for grabs.
Victory is in the air.
Republicans are expecting a good night. President Obama's dismal ratings have left Democrats across the country vulnerable.
This is a rejection of him and his leadership because he is the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party is likely to lose seats.
In state after state, Republicans have tried to make the election a referendum on the president.
Obama's senator, not yours.
Even some Democrats ran ads distancing themselves from the president.
The administration's policies are simply wrong.
For his part, Mr. Obama is expected to spend the day behind closed doors, participating in last-minute get-out-the-vote efforts. Republicans need to pick up 6 seats to regain control of the Senate. The battle could come down to Iowa, Colorado, and Kansas. Iowa and Colorado are 2 states President Obama won twice, but this year, Democrats have been playing defense. And Kansas is a big wild card. The state hasn't elected a Democrat since 1932, but independent candidate Greg Orman may be poised to knock off incumbent Republican Senator Pat Roberts. And Dan, it's not all bad news for Democrats. They could win back governor seats they lost in 2010, seats in Florida, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin.
Okay, but Taman, just maybe going beyond, I know the day isn't even over yet, but looking to 2016, who's doing well now 2 years out?
Well, Dan, it's never too soon to talk about 2016 and a potential presidential campaign. Our latest poll found that half of registered voters think that Hillary Clinton would make a good president. That is much better than her potential Republican opponents, people like Jeb Bush, Rand Paul, Chris Christie, and Rick Perry. So it looks like she starts the cycle, the next presidential race with an advantage. But of course, there's a lot of time before 2016. We'll keep you up to date probably every week, and then as things get closer, every hour, and then every minute.
Of course, we'll be looking forward to that. ABC's Taman Bradley live on Capitol Hill. Taman, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And now, I want to bring in ABC's senior Washington correspondent, Jeff Zeleny, who covers Capitol Hill for us. He is in Louisville, Kentucky today, though, the state with one of the most fiery Senate races in these midterm elections. So, Jeff, start us off there. Can a Democrat, in fact, pull off an upset?
Good day, Dan. We'll find out tonight if a Democrat can pull up an upset, but Senator Mitch McConnell, the minority leader of the Senate, who hopes to be the majority leader of the Senate by the end of this midterm election campaign, he's in command of this race. Allison Grimes says that she believes it'll be a photo finish, but just the mood and the energy makes clear that Senator McConnell is driving this race. And you can just look here at the headline of today's paper, the Louisville Courier-Journal. It says the candidate's final push. One thing I can tell you, Dan, voters here are ready for this to be over. A $50 million campaign here in this midterm election campaign. So many television ads, so much sort of anger from both sides. We talked to one voter just outside this polling place here who said he was fed up with it all, so he decided to make another choice. Let's take a look.
So you voted today.
Yeah.
How has this election been to you? Have you been following it pretty carefully?
Yeah, well, about as careful as anybody else.
Awful.
Yeah.
Why?
Because I ended up, let me try to think of this. Okay, so I think that Allison Grimes is inexperienced. I don't like the campaign she's run. I don't like Mitch either. But at the same time, it's like, you know, what are you gonna do? So I just ended up voting for the Libertarian. I don't mind telling you that.
Really? David
yeah.
Patterson?
Yeah. Just because it'll take away a vote from McConnell, but I can't in good conscience bring myself to vote for Allison Grimes.
Yeah, Dan, he's probably the exception, not the rule, but he said he didn't like either candidate, so he voted for the Libertarian. So that's one thing we're looking for tonight. These third-party candidates all across the country, could they be a spoiler? Could they be a wild card in this race? We'll find out. But a very interesting day here in Kentucky at this polling place. We're at Mitch McConnell's polling place. He's going to cast his ballot here and then go watch the rest of the races, because he is eyeing all of those races across the country that hold the cards to whether he'll be the Senate Majority Leader, Dan.
Interesting. I'm sure there'll be some very strong sentiment coming out of that polling place there today. So let's go over to North Carolina's race there. And the question is, the Democratic firewall, is that going to hold up today?
We'll find out. I mean, Democrats have their eye on North Carolina more than any other state. They do hope it's their firewall. Senator Kay Hagan, a first-term Democratic senator, was elected in 2008 with President Obama, and she's now fighting for a re-election. But she has managed somehow to stay a bit above the fray and hold on. So she's been one of the few Democrats who's actually been leading her race. So tonight, if North Carolina happens to go Democratic, it means that it could be a long night for Republicans. But if it goes the other way, if the Republican Speaker of the House there, who's running for Senate, if he happens to win, that could be the sign of a Republican wave.
And then I want to go over to Iowa, because that's been a race that's certainly gained a lot of national attention. It's been a seat that's been held there, obviously, for a number of years by Senator Tom Harkin. What about this, though? Does this look a good prospect for Republicans?
It does. I mean, Republicans have so many hopes on Iowa, mainly because, as you said, Dan, Senator Tom Harkin has held this seat. It's been in Democratic hands for 3 decades. Joni Ernst came out of nowhere. She's a Republican state senator, a combat veteran, and she would be the first woman ever elected to the U.S. Senate from Iowa. So Republicans really believe that they have a good shot there, and that would give them one more seat to pick up. The magic number to keep in mind all night is 6. Republicans need to pick up 6 seats. They believe Iowa is certainly one of those, and they hope it is.
And then let's also go over to Arkansas there, and the question they're being asked today are the Clintons. Can they rescue Southern Democrats essentially from extinction?
We'll find out. I mean, Bill Clinton has campaigned across the state of Arkansas for Senator Mark Pryor. He's a bit of an endangered species, a Southern Democrat. He's been behind in the polls. He has struggled to distance himself from President Obama throughout this campaign. A tough environment for Democrats, and he has tried to use his family name to hold on. He's tried to use his long standing high with voters and the community to hold on, because the Pryor name is sort of a famous one in Arkansas politics, but very tough for him tonight. Representative Tom Cotton is the Republican candidate there. He'll be if he wins, he'll be part of this new GOP generation. He's only 37 years old, so if he wins tonight, as most people expect that he will, the Senate will be not quite as gray as it has been, Dan.
Interesting there. So last, I want to ask you about Kansas there, and whether or not an independent is going to be sending a message to Washington.
If there's one race that keeps Republicans up at night, it's Kansas. Senator Pat Roberts, longtime Republican, has struggled to hold on to this race. He's running against an independent, Greg Orman, as you said. He has not said which party he would join or vote with if he comes to Washington, but if there is a independent sort of streak or mood by voters, if there is a sense that, we're going to send Washington a message, it could come in Kansas. And that really complicates the Republican effort to win majority control of the Senate. So they're hoping that Kansas is not the wild card spoiler for them. But if there's one race, like I said, that is making Republicans across the country anxious, it is in Kansas, Dan.
All right. From the perch in Louisville, Kentucky, our Jeff Zeleny keeping an eye on all those races. Jeff, thank you so much. Certainly appreciate it. And of course, you can keep up with the story in real time by downloading the ABC News app and starting the story for exclusive updates on the go. And stay with our live streaming coverage of the midterm elections beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. For now, though, I'm Dan Kleffler in New York.